Ride the signal through the unknown. This is the cryptic current.
The wall wasn't there when he went to bed, but it was there now, solid and cold against his palm. A metallic scent, like old coins and damp earth, filled the air where the hallway should have been. Then came the sound, not from behind the new wall, but from within it. A deep, resonant thump that vibrated through the floorboards. His breath hitched, caught in his throat as the thump repeated, this time followed by the faint, wet sound of something dragging itself. The air grew heavy and thick, pressing down on him with a weight that felt ancient and hungry. This was no intruder. This was the house itself, awake and aware, reshaping its bones to trap him inside its own hungry darkness. Primal dread took hold, the certainty that the worst thing in his home had never come in from the outside. It had been there all along, sleeping in the plaster and the pipes, and now it was stretching its limbs. Welcome to Millhaven, Pennsylvania. Population 347. Every home here, from the oldest Victorian to the newest prefab, holds a secret. A second door exists within each, built into the very walls, a door you can't see, but you can sometimes smell the damp wood and feel the cold air seeping from its unseen frame. A door you cannot lock. And tonight, we know what's on the other side. Our story begins in the picturesque town of Autumn's Hollow, nestled in a valley of fiery maple trees. The air there carries the crisp scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke. A perfect, peaceful postcard. But beneath that idyllic surface, something else has always lingered, waiting. The video glitches. A brief digital distortion flickering across the screen. This is the story of Sarah and Ben Carter. They were city people from Austin, Texas, desperate for quiet. The town of Millhaven, with its historic covered bridge and famous apple butter festival, seemed like the perfect escape. Their new home on Sycamore Lane was a steal, a fact that should have been their first warning. The realtor, a cheerful man named Mr. Evans, was oddly insistent about one particular clause in the deed. The document's highlighted line read, "The resident acknowledges the architectural anomaly and agrees to the town's maintenance protocols." In a voiceover, Sarah recalls the moment with a hint of unease. "He said it was just boilerplate," her voice narrates, the words now carrying a weight of ominous hindsight. The old mining town's foundations held a secret. The quirk, an invisible stress point in every structure, impossible to see but palpable in the air. You could feel it. A subtle wrongness that seeped into the bones of the place. It wasn't just a flaw, it was a presence, waiting. Ben, in his 30s and easygoing, was hanging a picture in the living room. The camera drifted to a blank section of the wall, its focus softening slightly. Sarah first noticed it while arranging the sofa, a pocket of frigid, thick air by the hearth. It wasn't a draft. The cold felt deliberate, dense, and utterly still. The air wasn't empty. It felt dense, substantial, almost solid. She pressed her palm flat against it, meeting a cool, unyielding resistance. Then, from the other side, came the faintest, slowest push in return. It wasn't a barrier, it was a presence, and it had just acknowledged her. As the days passed, Sarah's unease deepened, her eyes darting toward that section of wall. Ben tried to laugh it off, tapping the cold patch with a hammer, but the sound came out flat and deadened, swallowed by the space. That night, Sarah set a glass of water on the floor nearby. By dawn, it was filmed with a slick, icy condensation. Millhaven was a friendly town, but it kept its secrets close. Their neighbor Eleanor would only ever wave from her porch, a silent sentinel behind her screen door, until one damp, gray afternoon, she beckoned Sarah over, the door creaking open just enough to pass something through. Sarah took the still warm pie, the scent of cinnamon, and something faintly metallic hanging in the humid air. Eleanor's weary eyes held Sarah's, and her voice was a papery whisper as she asked, "You have children?" "No," Sarah replied, the single word feeling oddly heavy in the space between them. "Not yet." Eleanor gave a slow, knowing nod. Her voice dropped to a whisper, heavy with warning. "Keep it that way." They're drawn to the quiet doors. A faint, bitter smell of ozone and dust hung in the air as she finished. "They think it's a game." Sarah demanded an explanation, but Eleanor only gestured weakly toward her own living room wall, her fingers quivering uncontrollably. That evening, Ben sensed it first. A deep, subsonic vibration thrumming up through the floorboards. The air grew thick with a metallic scent, like old copper or rusted iron. It wasn't coming from outside. It emanated from within their very wall. Ben's quirk was the laser thermometer he always carried, a tool he trusted to measure the tangible world. He aimed it at the wall, the display reading a normal 68 degrees. Exactly what he expected. Then he moved it to the adjacent space, and the number plummeted. 51 degrees. A localized cold spot, invisible to the eye but starkly real on the display, hung in the air before him. His palm traced the wall, and a sudden coldness met his skin. The chill formed a precise, vertical rectangle in the air, the exact dimensions of a doorway. A metallic scent, like cold iron, whispered from the impossible space. Ben's breath hitched, his voice a strained whisper in the heavy air. "Sarah, it's not a spot." They began their experiment. dusting flour into the still air. The particles didn't settle. Instead, they hung in the air, clinging to an invisible form. The shape was crude, but unmistakable. A figure, standing silently in the dark. A marble was dropped. It rolled across the floor, then stopped dead, as if hitting an unseen wall, refusing to pass the invisible threshold. Their research hit dead ends at an intangible barrier, where sound simply ceased to exist. Town records were suspiciously lost, and the library's local history section stood eerily vacant. The only clue was a faded 1891 microfiche article about a spiritualist colony that founded Millhaven to bridge the gap between realms. Their architect believed every home should have a door for the seen and a door for the unseen. As the vibrations around them began to intensify, the pictures on the wall began to rattle in their frames, a jagged crack spiderwebbed through the plaster, tracing the outline of a doorway that shouldn't exist. Then came the sound, a low, rhythmic thud, pulsing from within the wall itself. The air thickened with the scent of ozone and ancient dust as the knocking continued from somewhere impossibly close. From the other side of the wall, the maintenance protocol. Mr. Evans had mentioned it. Just leave a bowl of salt by the anomaly monthly. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone, and a low, persistent scratching began to whisper from within the plaster. Desperate, they called the town crew, who assured them, "We'll handle it." A man named Mike arrived in an unmarked van, its engine cutting through the heavy evening air. He didn't inspect the crumbling wall or the strange stains seeping through. Instead, his cold, calculating gaze fixed directly on them, as if measuring something unseen. "Have you tried to open it? Have you heard it speaking? Does it show you things in your sleep?" Mike methodically sprinkles iron filings around the wall's base. The metallic scent sharpened the damp air. Mike's face drained of color as the pins remained upright, all pointing inward toward the door's center. "It's latched," he whispered, the words tasting of iron. From your side, a damp, metallic scent filled the space as he explained the terrible truth. The doors weren't for them to get in. Those weren't just pressure valves. They were anchors, tethering the unseen to our world. An invisible tenant, quiet and patient, in every home that held one. The salt, the so-called maintenance, was never a repair. It was a calming ritual, a whispered plea to a presence that demanded constant appeasement. A treaty exists, Mike. But sometimes, a resident interacts. They push back. They make it notice them. The air thickens with the sharp scent of ozone, the kind that precedes a storm. The ambient hum of the neighborhood falls into an unnatural hush. Then, a sound, not wind, but a low, wet scratching from just beyond the porch light's reach. It's the sound of something dragging itself closer. To challenge the quiet is to shatter the treaty. And in that moment, the resident knows they have just become the subject of its full, undivided attention. Your curiosity had been piqued, but it was more than that now. It was hungry for something far darker than a secluded nook. Then, that night, the lights flickered once, twice, and died, plunging everything into an oppressive blackness. The air grew thick with the metallic scent of ozone, and a faint, underlying odor of decay. From somewhere in the house, a slow, wet drip began, each drop landing with a sticky finality. The thudding now escalated into a violent pounding. The air before the door warped and shimmered, like a heat haze in a desert, but it carried a scent of ozone and damp earth. Sarah's voice was a tight, terrified whisper. "What does it want?" Ben's reply was hollow, final. "It wants a door that opens." The shimmering coalesced into a solid, spectral rectangle, a phantom doorway etched in cold, phosphorescent light. From the ectoplasmic mist, the handle began to twist and solidify, becoming something tangible, cold, and unnervingly real. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and decay, a palpable dread that seemed to cling to the skin. The treaty was broken. The Carter family's fear, their focused attention, had nourished this entity into being. It had evolved beyond mere door, hungering to become a true passage. With a sound of splintering reality, the handle clicked. The door swung inward, not into a wall, but into a vast, impossible darkness. The air that rolled out carried the sharp tang of ozone and the deep, unsettling scent of ancient, undisturbed soil. A silhouette stood framed within it, a blurred, human-shaped void that seemed to drink the light from the room. Then, the screen plunged into total, silent blackness. Dawn's pale light finally crept into the living room, revealing a scene of utter devastation. Every surface was wrecked, as if a violent storm had raged through the confined space. His eyes snapped to the wall where the crack had been. Only smooth, unbroken plaster remained. The air smelled of dust and something faintly metallic, like old coins left in rain. No cold spot remained, just Sarah slumped on the floor, her gaze hollow and unfocused. Ben moved through the kitchen with mechanical precision, his hands operating the coffee machine as if detached from his body. The air hung thick with the scent of burnt coffee and something metallic, like old pennies. Then, in a voice stripped of all warmth, the narrator whispered, "The door was gone. So was Mike." The town claimed he'd transferred elsewhere, but the Carters remained behind. What choice did they have? The property was worthless to anyone else. The air inside grew thick with the scent of damp rot and ozone. Every floorboard creaked with the weight of unsaid truths. They learned the rules. Don't acknowledge the new cold spot forming in the guest bedroom. Salt by the baseboard every full moon. Ignore the whispers in the pipes. Sarah stood at the town council meeting, her eyes sweeping across the placid, friendly faces of her neighbors. The baker, the teacher, the mechanic. A faint scent of ozone hung in the air, like the moment before a storm. Her breath hitched as she realized the same hollow vacancy stared back from every single pair of eyes. The room felt suddenly cold, the warmth of community replaced by a collective, chilling absence. A secret shared in exhaustion, a weary burden carried by all. The mayor's smile never touched his eyes, a hollow gesture that felt colder than the winter air. His voice was gentle, yet it carried the metallic scent of old lies. Welcome home, Sarah. Truly. The camera slowly pulls back, revealing the Carter house, the empty street, and finally the entire, silent town sleeping under a watchful darkness. Each home glowed with the faint, pulsing outline of a door. So we leave you with this question. You're home right now, alone. You feel a draft, or maybe just a stillness. You approach the wall, pressing your palm flat against its surface. You wait in the stillness, feeling a faint, rhythmic thrum through the plaster. Is it just the building's old pipes? Or is something on the other side mirroring your gesture? A slow realization creeps in. Your home has always had one door too many. The words, "Good night, sleep tight," hung in the air, a whispered promise that felt more like a threat. The scent of ozone and damp plaster seeped from the walls, heavy and cloying. A faint scratching sound began behind the headboard, rhythmic and deliberate. The air grew thick, pressing down like a cold, wet blanket, making each breath a conscious effort.
If the signal hooked you, subscribe and catch the next ripple.